There's a girl named Evie Hammond who's getting ready to go out at night. She's watching a TV show where a guy named Louis Prothero talks about the government. He supports a group called the Norse Fire Party, which rules the country like a dictator. Prothero says the government is based on religion and faith, with a slogan, strength through unity, unity through faith. The leader, Chancellor Adam Sutler, came to power because of disease, violence, war, fear, and hate against certain groups like gay people, Muslims, and immigrants. Evie leaves her house but gets stopped by secret police from the Norse Fire Party. They threaten her, but a mysterious person named V, wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, saves her. V then invites Evie to watch something from a rooftop, where they see an explosion at the Old Bailey, a courthouse. V tells Evie that this is part of his plan to fight against the government and give freedom back to the people of Britain. After the explosion, the top officials of the Norse Fire Party, including Inspector Eric Finch, Roger Dascombe, Brian Etheridge, Peter Creedy, and Conrad Heyer, have a secret meeting with Chancellor Adam Sutler, who appears on a big screen. Together, they represent different parts of the government: nose, mouth, ears, fingers, and eyes, with Sutler being the brain. Sutler says the Old Bailey's destruction was a planned demolition. They start looking for the man in the Guy Fawkes mask. Evie is seen on camera and ordered to be caught and questioned. The next day, Evie takes a package to the costume department, while V goes to the broadcasting station with a bomb. Inspector Finch and his partner try to catch Evie, while V makes most people leave the station. Evie hides, and V speaks on TV, asking people to speak against injustice and join him at Parliament on November 5th. After the broadcast, Dascombe follows the police to the studio. They find someone in a Fawkes mask and shoot him, but he turns out to be an employee wearing the costume. Finch finds V's bomb and disarms it. Two men in Fawkes masks appear, and one claims to be V, but he's not. The real V arrives and defeats the officers. Later, Finch watches tapes with Dominic and notices V's interest in Evie. Footage of the raid says the terrorist was killed. Evie wakes up in an unknown place and finds V. He brought her there after she saved him but passed out. Evie thanks him but wants to leave. V says she must stay until they destroy Parliament in a year. He wants to show the people that the government should fear them. Evie is upset but eventually has breakfast with V and learns about his plan. Later, Prothero watches his own show while showering at home, repeating his condemnation of the terrorist enthusiastically. V confronts Prothero in his loft, and when V calls him Commander, Prothero realizes who he is. Finch and other officers investigate Prothero's loft and find him dead, with vomit and a rose nearby. Finch learns that Prothero was rich before his show and used to be a boss at Larkhill, an old government place. After watching The Count of Monte Cristo, Evie finds out about Prothero's death and asks V about why he did it. Shaken, Evie decides to leave V's place and tells him her story. She talks about how her parents were taken by the government after her little brother died from a virus leak. V agrees to let her help and they plan to go after their next target, Bishop Anthony Lil Lyman. Evie goes to her boss, Gordon Dietrich, for help. He's a fugitive who hides his real self on TV and at home. Meanwhile, Finch finds out that both Lil Lyman and Delia Surridge, a chemist from Larkhill, were there. He talks to Delia, who recognizes a Scarlett Carson he shows her but can't say more. V later visits Delia and gives her a quick, painless death. Finch arrives too late and finds her dead with a Scarlett Carson and a red notebook. Sutler doesn't care about the notebook, thinking it's either terrorist stuff or crazy talk. But Finch can't forget what he read. The notebook is Delia's diary, talking about her time at Larkhill 20 years ago. She writes about testing drugs on homeless people and others she didn't like. She worked with Prothero and Lil Lyman, and all her tests killed people except for one guy in room 5. In his case, even though he couldn't remember much, he got quick reflexes and strength. On November 5th, the lab where Delia worked exploded, and she saw the man from room 5 badly burned and angry. Meanwhile, Evie spends time with Gordon, who shows her a new show he wrote that morning. In the show, a fake Chancellor Sutler is welcomed to the studio with soldiers holding guns, making the audience applaud. Sutler is given warm milk, which he drinks every night. There's a funny skit where V ties Sutler's shoelaces together, and they chase each other around the stage. Later that night, soldiers take Gordon away, and Evie is captured too. She's put in a room with a government official asking about V's location. When she can't answer, they torture her, shave her head, and keep her in a small cell. One day, she finds a note from a woman named Valerie, who talks about falling in love with a girl named Sarah and being rejected by her parents for being gay. Valerie and her partner Ruth were detained because of Sutler's rules against gay people and Muslims. Valerie says she still holds on to her humanity, even if they take her life. Evie is brought back to the interrogation room and refuses to talk, even when threatened with death. She's taken back to her cell, but an official asks her to give just one piece of information to save herself. Evie chooses to face death instead. The official tells her she's now fearless and leaves. Confused, Evie walks out and finds herself in the shadow gallery. V explains he brought her there and Gordon was executed when the police found the hidden room. He says her imprisonment was to help her let go of fear and hate. Evie gets angry, feeling numb, and collapses. V comforts her, reminding her of the pain she went through. Evie asks to go outside and feels faint. V takes her to the roof, where she laughs in the rain, feeling free. Deciding to leave the gallery, Evie finds a note she thinks V wrote. But V shows her Valerie's shrine and tells her about his own suffering. He believes he must repay what was done to him. Evie thanks him and agrees to visit him before November 5th, then leaves. V removes his mask and cries. At a meeting with party members, Sutler blames Creedy for not catching the terrorist. He makes stricter rules and more surveillance. A man named William Rookwood contacts Finch with important information. Rookwood tells him about Sutler's party and how they gain power by using fear and lies. He advises Finch to watch Creedy. Later, Finch finds out Rookwood was actually V and goes back to his investigation. As the 5th of November nears, crates containing costumes with black cloaks, hats, and fox masks are delivered across London, even to Finch. Sutler orders anyone wearing them to be arrested immediately. Finch thinks this is part of V's plan for chaos. Riots break out in London, and a girl in the costume is shot and beaten. The Norse Fire Party meets with Sutler one last time. He's angry they couldn't catch V and says he'll only read Creedy's resignation if something happens to Parliament. Sutler insists people need the government, despite many arrests. On the eve of the 5th, Evie returns to the Shadow Gallery and finds V lost in thought. He's surprised to see her and asks her to dance. Evie wants to see his face, but V refuses, saying his face isn't who he really is. He takes Evie to a subway tunnel under the building, showing her a train filled with explosives that will go to Parliament if she decides. V says the decision should be the people's, not his. Then he goes to meet his fate. Meanwhile, Sutler tells people to stay indoors, but nobody listens. V meets Creedy, who brings Sutler to him. V puts a red flower on Sutler before Creedy kills him. Creedy wants V to take off his mask, but V refuses. Soldiers shoot V, but he kills them all before dying. At the train, Evie waits for V, thinking about his message. When he returns, he collapses, saying he's done. He confesses he loves her after years of seeking revenge. Evie doesn't want him to die, and he says it's the most beautiful thing she could give him before he dies. As armed guards surround Parliament, they can't reach anyone for orders. Suddenly, a crowd in fox costumes approaches. Without a leader, the guards lower their weapons and let the people through. Meanwhile, Finch finds Evie in the subway, controlling the train. V's body lies on the train, covered in roses. Evie tells Finch the country needs hope, not just a building. She starts the train and takes Finch to the rooftop. From there, they see Parliament explode beautifully to Tchaikovsky's overture. Finch asks who V was, and Evie says he was everyone, including herself. People in front of Parliament take off their masks, showing faces of freedom fighters. In the end, Evie says the country will always remember that night and what it meant. But she'll never forget V and what he meant to her.